series that we started called Support Local Tuesday. The reason we decided to do this series, well, we thought about doing something like this for a while, but we're really motivated to do it once the COVID-19 pandemic has hit for a lot of different reasons. Number one, we want to bring you lots of different folks out there who own small businesses in our community who provide great services and products so that you can get to know them on a personal level and know not just what they do, but why they do it and the passion behind it. And also to add to that, we really wanted to start the series now because, as you all know, lots of folks are being affected right now with the coronavirus from a business standpoint to a personal standpoint. But from a small business standpoint, it's very effective. And I think also too, seeing how the globe and the world is going to change after all this, I think it's very um, I think it's very poignant to say that moving forward now, we're going to need our small and local businesses now more than ever to rely on them for their help, their services, and their products, and not so much on big global conglomerate supply chains. So, without any further ado, I want to introduce our very first inaugural episode guest today, our good friend and family member, Leigh Morrow, who is an awesome travel agent with the Mouse Detectives Travel Agency. I've known Leigh my whole life, pretty much. But that's not why I wanted to have her here. I want to have her here for two reasons. Number one, yes, she's a small business owner, but she is a travel agent. She works in the travel industry. And like myself, working in the real estate industry, I'm getting tons of questions these days about how the pandemic is impacting the real estate market now and moving forward. Travel is one of the, if not the most impacted industries right now with the pandemic. And so I wanted to have Leigh on here to answer some questions that we have about the impact of travel now and in the future. And also, I wanted you guys just to get to know Leigh and what she's about, why she became a travel agent, and how she can help you, not just for the 2 week vacation in Europe, but how she can help you anything from just doing an overnight to Dallas. So, that being said, Leigh Morrow, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Stephen. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So, let's get right into it. What is it about travel that made you decide to become a travel agent, or why did you get into travel agency, or how did you get into it to begin with?
Well, basically, the way it started out was that I had a friend who was very passionate about travel to Disney World, particularly. Living in New Orleans, we are in close proximity to Disney World, and so we do visit there pretty frequently. And she was opening her own travel agency that specializes in Disney destinations. And I had visited numerous times and had always thought about doing it. And so when she sort of approached me about it, I thought, well, I need something new to do in my life that was more exciting and challenging than what I'd been doing before. And people have such a desire and a deep passion for Disney, for all things Disney, that I felt like I could really pass what I knew on to others. And I've very much enjoyed it, and glad that I took that leap 5 years ago.
That's awesome. And so that was going to be my next question. You've been in it now for 5 years. In
Right.
that time, if you had to guess, I'm going to put you on the spot. How many vacations do you think you've helped plan for people?
It's in the hundreds. Um, I started out, everybody starts out very slowly in this business. You have to sort of build your client base very slowly. But having a large family certainly helps. And having small children that, obviously families with younger children are in the market to go to Disney. So that helped a lot too. But, um, you know, I probably have anywhere from, depending on the month, 3 to 5 families traveling a month. Um, so, but again, the summer is usually the slowest for Disney. At least in the past few years, it has been. So those months, I tend to not really have a ton going on. But it probably, like real estate, travel is very cyclical.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's stick with Disney because I wanted to bring that point up too. You're a travel agent, but you are really a Disney specialist. I know
Yeah,
that because in the last 3 years, what, 6 trips?
at
Five,
least, at least, and
something
then a
like
couple
that.
more in the pipeline.
I've got 4 kids under 9, and my wife and I are Disney addicts now. So, and it's funny because up until a couple of years ago, we hadn't been in Disney World in 20 plus years, and we didn't realize just how much it had changed. We'd heard family members and friends say, "Oh, it's so hard to plan. You've got to plan a year out and this and that." So we were a little intimidated. So when I first reached out to you to plan that trip, we knew nothing except that it was still in Orlando and the castle was still there. And ironically, we actually had a trip planned for today. We were
What?
actually, you weren't going to say anything, were you?
No, what irony. How sad, right?
Yeah, so literally, so today is our daughter's fifth birthday, and we actually had a trip planned for right now to be in Disney World. So that's another reason I want to have you on too, because I'm going through a little withdrawals of not being there.
Withdrawals, yeah.
But from the Disney aspect, I just wanted to personally say we've gone on about half a dozen trips, all planned by you. And at the very beginning, we didn't know anything. You were doing everything from creating our daily itinerary, from when to go to lunch, what ride to go to after that, what character spot to go to after that, all the way to when you book this hotel, this is the stroller company to use, and this is the company to use for groceries. Whereas now, even though my wife and I, Abby, we feel we're kind of Disney pros now because we've gone so much recently. You still are a incredibly valuable asset in our planning. And piggybacking on the fact that we're not in Disney right now, I wanted to share that you know having a travel agent right now, when your travel plans get interrupted like they have been with COVID, has been amazing for us
They,
because I have if I would have had to, like, if I booked through Orbitz or something, if I would have had to call them and call the airline myself and the hotels and everything else on top of what I'm dealing with my business, what we're dealing with homeschooling, my mind would have exploded. So the fact that we had you as a travel agent to do that for us, and not only that, a few years ago on a trip that we had, full disclosure, my wife got the flu and we had to leave Disney mid trip. At I called Lee at like midnight because my wife was sick. I was like, what do we do? Lee took care of it all. And all I had to do, which was still not easy, I had to pack up the kids, get the suitcases, get my wife ready. But as far as hotel, flight, everything, Lee had it taken care of. And so I just thought it was very important to mention that right now because it's not just a good conversation I have with you as a travel agent about moving forward, but this is a super good example that if you're living through COVID right now and you had a trip planned, which almost all of us had some kind of vacation plan within February to October of this year, you're dealing with having to deal with those issues. And if you didn't have a great travel agent, it's just a headache
right,
that you don't need. So I
right.
want to point that out.
And just a little anecdote about that. A lot of people, and I don't want to name too many big box names, but have booked their vacations through big box retailers, specifically places where you go buy wholesale
Yeah.
things, large. They have a
Big
great
boxes
travel
of
agent.
olive oil.
Yes. They have a travel agency within their store, and a lot of people have booked there. They get great, decent deals.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that what was happening after, when Disney closed and canceled cruises and things like that, people were not getting responses from those big box companies because they're not personalized service. It's a call center with 300 or 400 people in it. They don't know anything about you or your trip or your family situation, and that's the kind of service you're going to get when you go with a place like that.
And
So
and
that's
and
just a,
and that's so true of many industries today. My industry, your industry, and that kind of goes back to that comment I made early on. The world's going to change now with working with other people because we've gotten to the point where we're all trying to save a buck and we'll do what it takes. The reality is, working with a personal travel agent like you save just as much as somebody going through a big box. But when it hits the fan, like it just did, that
right,
personal service, that lack of stress that I have now is amazing. But the best part is, and I think this is a big misconception with travel agents, kind of like buyers of real estate. I don't pay you anything. You don't cost me a dime. You don't cost anybody a dime to help them plan their
right,
vacation. The only thing someone can get from a travel agent is 100% benefit. That's it.
right, right.
There's no
That
downside.
is that is true. There is no downside as long as you book your vacation directly with me as your travel agent. Then there is the vendor, whoever we've booked the trip with, is the one that pays me. The only time that you would ever have to pay a travel agent is if you were to book a trip on your own, independently, and then still want guidance and
Services.
service
Yeah.
after that. And then, I have done that many times with a lot of people. I can still do that as well. But yes, generally, if you book your vacation through me, through the Mouse Detectives, then you will not pay me. You personally will not pay me 1 cent.
That's awesome. And
So,
and
yeah,
and and to continue that, like, so we started using a travel agent, you, for Disney trip, but other trips too. It doesn't just have to be
yeah,
Disney. It can be for a couple. If it could be for a business trip or anything else, like you have
yes,
the ability to get access to those rack rates, and you will
yes,
book it, and you will take care of it, and then you send me an email with everything. It's, I mean, it really is a concierge service. So
right,
I'm
right.
I'm I'm, I'm glad you're here because you
I
made my
book.
life a lot
Thank you.
easier
Thank
in
you.
my
Yeah, I
life.
mean, I book all, Disney has 5 destinations. So I book Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise Line, Alani in Hawaii, and
Looks like Lee froze there for a second. Probably getting a call. It happens a lot when you do Facebook Live interviews like this. A lot of times it's over the phone or on your iPad. And if a call comes through, he freezes. Gotcha. You're back.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Can't hear you.
You can? You
I
can't hear
cannot
me?
hear you.
All right. 1 second. We're
I'm
going
going
to
to
refresh
pause
this
for a
again.
minute.
You'll be able to hear me. 1 second. All right. Can you hear me now? All
We're
right.
good.
Folks,
So
how it goes.
there you go. So yeah, so all
Disney
my
World, Disneyland, Alani, Disney Cruise.
and Adventures by Disney, which is like a coach tour company.
That's a super cool thing I want to come back to because most
It
people don't even know
is.
what Adventures by Disney is, and it's amazing.
It is. It's a fantastic product. All cruise lines, everything: Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, Carnival, Viking, everybody you can think of, I've done. Um, Coach tour companies, which would be things like Globus, Trafalgar, Talk. These are places where, sort of like if you want to go tour Europe, but you really don't know how to plan it on your own. It's a company that kind of plans it for you, and you take a bus. You go on a coach, which is a bus, fancy bus, and you travel around with a guided tour with a guide, a local guide, which is absolutely fantastic. I did it last summer with Adventures by Disney, and it was unbelievable. Um,
What
so yeah,
attracts me to it, and from what people I've spoken to that have done Adventures by Disney, especially to Europe, is, a lot of times when people go to Europe or on really big vacations like that, they'll book tour guides and that type of thing. But I think from what I've heard is that doing it through Adventures by Disney, you're still getting the Disney treatment. You're still getting that platinum white glove, and that
right,
really is. And my wife and I have discovered this the last several years when we go. That's one of the biggest reasons I love doing Disney vacations. It's obviously nostalgic and fun for the kids and this and that. I love how I'm treated. It is first
right,
class all the way. So
right.
having access to Adventures by Disney to be able to go other places besides the Disney park, but still get that VIP treatment,
Yes,
that's what attracts me to it. That's why we're going to
yes. We call it the Disney difference.
do it.
The Disney difference, yeah. And Adventures by Disney's all over the world, including the United States. So I did one out west. So we did the Grand Canyon and all of the national parks out west last summer. And I have never been on a more fantastic vacation. It
Really.
was amazing. Yeah. They bring in local guides. You have access to all these different local experiences. They brought in a ton of the Navajo Native Americans, and we did some things that the thing that sets apart Adventures by Disney is you get access to places that you normally would not have access to. For example, in the Grand Canyon, there are 3 hotels that are in the Grand Canyon that book up a year and a half in advance. I got to stay inside the Grand Canyon at one of these hotels. These are historic places that you normally would not necessarily get to stay in.
I didn't even know that
Um,
existed. That's awesome.
yeah, that's just an example. Those types of things is what sets apart the Disney difference. You drop your luggage off and you never see it again until it's sitting in your room. They take care of everything for you. It's an amazing product.
I got to be honest, just talking to you about it just makes me feel better because it's just a wonderful experience.
It is. It really like when I think
Man.
back on it, it was awesome. It was
So
awesome.
we got let's turn the page a little bit and let's talk about the elephant in the room, COVID.
Right.
happening right now. So from a holistic standpoint, and I really want to get your take from the Disney standpoint, because again, you're a Disney specialist. Kind of bring us up to speed on what we've seen happen and what the projections are as of today. Because I know it's a moving target. But let's talk about Disney specific first, and then I want your take on travel as a whole for the next 12
Okay.
months.
So the key is that it is a moving target. We have not really been officially updated by Disney in a little while. So right now, the official word is that we don't really know when either park is going to open in the United States. Um, we do know that Disney is absolutely going to follow safety guidelines and social distancing guidelines when they do reopen. And so all you can do is assume at that point that the park is going to look different than what you've known it to be. So you've been there 6 times in the last few years. The next time you go, if you go this year or even early next year, you it may not be the same type of experience that you're used to. Uh, we don't know for sure. Nothing has been announced. Disney can sort of do what they have freedom to make their own guidelines, but it has been recommended to open at a certain percentage of capacity, whether it's 25 or 50%. Masks be required. Obviously, with social distancing, keeping crowds at a low level, which in a Disney park is definitely a challenge. And so, what I have just been telling people is that number one, I don't know when it's going to reopen, and number two, it may not look like your typical Disney park experience for a little bit of time. But being having with the Disney difference, you can be assured that they're going to make it as Disney wonderful as they can. Um, so that's kind of what I've been telling people as far as what we can expect from Disney parks this year and next
Gotcha.
year.
And I know, like, we'll go on the app sometimes, or I talk to other people, and they'll say, "Oh, well, Disney's allowing for fast passes in June," but it's like they were doing that in May, they were doing that in April.
They were doing that right.
I think they're just kind of. It seems like they're just getting ready as soon as they feel like they can, so that they're set. But there is
Right.
no. We know what's going to
There's no
happen.
timeline.
Well,
We've all heard many different rumors. It could be 2021, it could be June of this year. I mean,
yeah,
that's a
exactly.
pretty wide. Um, I do know what we do 100% know is that Shanghai and Hong Kong are preparing to open pretty soon in the next month or two, and
Okay.
so they are making preparations. They're putting in all kinds of safeguards with social distancing, and so we can definitely use those two parks as a guide to show us what the American parks will look like when they do open. um, but I get that question daily: when
Yeah.
will the parks open? Could be June 1st, could be August 1st, could be January 1st. We really have, and if you think about the amount of work it's going to take for them to put in all these safeguards,
Oh God, yeah.
can you
On
imagine? I
top of
mean,
what they're already doing, it's
right. I mean, no, you can imagine there's probably not going to be a buffet, but no more buffet food. Character greetings we know have started up in, I think it's either Hong Kong or Shanghai, and those are socially distant. So the character stands X amount of feet away, and the children, no one can approach the character. And so those are two things that we are pretty sure are going to happen. Now, can you
yeah,
imagine how many more there are that they have to come up with to
yeah.
make this a safe experience, to make people safe? So it may take a while for them to figure all of that out.
It is, and then on top of that, there's the watching and waiting to see what happens with the virus itself, because it may be that it starts out that way, and then over time we get back to where we were. Or
Right.
if this thing is with us for a long time, then we may be looking at that as the what they call, I hate the term new normal, by the way,
New
just
norm. I know. I know.
but it
But
may be that for a ways to come. But
right.
there's no guarantee. Now, I know, and a lot of this is like personal opinion because you have no way of knowing.
No. Right.
With Disney having to make changes like no character meet and greets or limited parades, in other words, limiting the experience that you otherwise would have gotten for a trip you booked 6 or 9 months ago, how do you think, or do you think that will any way impact the fees, like park tickets and things like that?
What a great question. You know, I honestly don't know. It is really anyone's guess, and I really would hate to even guess at that because They have offered, like for example, if you had a trip booked through, I believe it was
May
May
31st.
31st, they have offered free dining to anyone who rebooks from June 1st through September 30th. So they're offering incentives, and I have no reason to think that won't continue. Um, but as far as a steep decline in a price, I just don't see that happening when you consider how much revenue
Yeah.
they they have had none. Disney Parks, the branch of Disney Parks, has had no revenue
And
since March.
that's the bulk of their, as Disney is obviously a big conglomerate. They bought ESPN, they own Fox, all that, but the parks is still their cash cow. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't expect it
So
out of you, but I'm sure that's a question you're probably going to get, which is why I wanted to
it
ask.
is. And I can tell you based on history, after the recession in 2008, that's when they started offering free dining,
Yeah.
was to lure people to the parks. And so that may be something that they have to do in the
Like
future.
package type stuff.
Yeah, just special deals, and they're
Yeah.
basically incentives to get people to go. But then they may not. No one really knows. Are people going to be flocking back because they're so desperate for fun, or are they going to stay away because they're scared? It's impossible to know the answer to that question.
And I want to continue with the COVID, what you see for travel in general, but I do want to interject one point real quick, and that is the deals. When working with a travel agent like you, specifically a Disney specialist, I might book a trip today for next year, but in 3 months, there may be a discount that pops up or a deal
Right.
that pops up because I have you, you're actually monitoring those discounts and deals. And if they happen, you can backdate them to where I can actually take advantage of them. But if I
Yes.
don't have you and I'm not looking at the website every day, I miss out on those deals, correct?
Right. And as a travel agent, we do get heads up of when the deal is coming out, and the deals are not infinite. And so, in other
Yeah.
words, there's a set number that they give out, and if you're not in the first line of people to get them, then you don't get one. So, when you have a travel agent, we're constantly monitoring them, and they go live, at 3 o'clock in the morning typically, and usually all of us are up at 3 a.m. trying to get those deals for our clients because we know that's what makes everyone happy. Is a good
I
deal.
want you to repeat that. I don't think people realize that. No. When you do a
Three
Disney
o'clock.
trip, you've got to get reservations for dining 6 months out. Fast
Yep.
passes, which means getting on the ride faster 60 days out. They release those at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning,
In
and
the morning.
so you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning
Right.
getting those reservations for your clients.
Right. The deals is the not the worst, but those are usually 2 3 in the morning, and then dining comes live at 6 a.m. Central Standard Time, and fast passes are 5 a.m. Central Standard Time, and I make those for all my clients, so I'm the one who's waking up to do that. Um, so yeah, that's just one of my services, free.
Yeah, I know. We've used it.
I know you have. I
Yes,
know
we
it's
have. And the last thing I'll make about the deal, a personal example. Again, our first trip to Disney as a family years ago, um, we knew nothing about Disney. After we booked, you contacted us like a week later and added a free. We got free dining on our first trip. We were so spoiled that first trip, we had no clue. But that was something we didn't even know existed. And you were like, "Oh, by the way, you get free dining." And I'm like, "Is that good?" And you're like, "Yeah." And you told me what the
yeah.
savings was. And I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing. We
That's
saved
awesome.
a ton of money." But if we
And
didn't have you, we wouldn't have
right,
saved that. And so that was
right,
more money we could spend on souvenirs and
and
paid for half my
right.
flight, that kind of stuff.
That's
So
a lot. Yeah, and you're the best kind of client who has no idea that's coming, as
that's
opposed to
exactly
someone
right. It
who's
was,
expecting to get it as you're the best kind
you
who just get.
spoiled us so much. I literally spend my retirement now on Disney trips for my.
I know you do.
That's
I
okay.
know. Same here.
Going back to COVID, though, I want to wrap up on that. So we talked about what's happening now with the parks. There really is no black and white, but if people want to find out what's happening with the parks, they can follow you on Facebook. They can
Follow me
follow
on
your
Facebook.
page, Leigh
Yes.
Morrow.
And
And the information, by the
obviously,
way, is at the bottom of the screen. They can search your name that way to find out, to follow you for updates.
yes.
For travel as a whole, what are you hearing for the next 12 months regarding things like flights? Are they going to be, are airplanes going to be 25% occupied? What about hotels? I mean, like right now, I'm guessing hotels are still open, but what are you seeing? What changes are you seeing that we're going to be witnessing, not just in Disney, but traveling in general for the next year that we should
Right.
expect?
From what I'm understanding, hotel and airline occupancies are not very high currently, but that's not to say that in 6 months, when people feel more comfortable doing all those things, traveling outside of their own region. Because I do think in the next 6 months that regional travel is going to be more popular than the type of travel where you need to fly. In other words, driving distance
Yeah.
type of vacations. But I think in 6 months, when people feel more comfortable, and maybe numbers go down as far as COVID's concerned, I think we'll see an uptick in travel toward the end of the year as far as, airlines and hotel occupancy. But I just don't see it going back to normal numbers until a vaccine is found. I really don't. I think businesses, large companies, are going to cancel conventions. No one wants that liability, and so I don't see it going back to normal for a while. So you may be able to find good deals on. I mean, obviously, right now you can fly to Abu Dhabi for like 15 cents, but you know
You
that's
really want to go to Abu Dhabi? That's the whole thing. No,
that's right. Do you really want to go? And
probably not.
well, and then I've heard, I haven't done a ton of research on it at all, but there's an island in Italy, off the coast of Sicily, that is actually willing to pay your airfare to fly there and vacation there. Um, so I think that that is possibly going to happen in the future. Companies are going to be so desperate, I guess you could
Yeah,
say,
desperate is the
that
word to
that may
use.
start happening. Right.
And then it's going to be a
Um,
matter of people's personal comfort.
right. And I really do think that's the bottom line in
Yeah.
all of this is what is your family personally comfortable doing?
Yep.
And that goes from, Disney parks to getting on an airplane to any kind of travel. If your family is personally comfortable with doing any of these things, then you should absolutely do it. Um, and that's it's just up to what you personally believe is right for your family.
Yeah. And you're right. And that's what we're all doing with everything, whether it's going to the grocery store or trying to plan a trip. It's that
Yes.
personal choice.
Because I have seen a wide array. I've got clients who would go to Disney World tomorrow if it was open, and I have people canceling for November because they just don't
You don't feel
want to
safe.
go back.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a couple more questions. If you've got a couple more
Okay.
minutes.
Yes.
What are some common misconceptions that people have about working with a travel agent, if any? That
Well,
you see?
the first one is definitely that I have a fee, that we charge you, which we've already discussed. I do not, unless you've booked your vacation with another company. I do not have a fee, so that is number one. Um, I don't know that there are a ton other misconceptions.
What about
Um,
Disney specifically? Planning a trip to Disney. What are some misconceptions people
oh,
have?
that people have about Disney.
Yeah,
Um, well, I think
that it's
people don't
easy.
gen- people generally don't understand how many moving parts there are in a Disney vacation. In other words, that there are fast passes. How do the fast passes work? If you that you can't just walk into a restaurant at Disney World and and say table for four. You have to have an advanced reservation, and you have to get them at 180 days. They don't understand. Um, Again, going back to fast passes, that you get three in advance, that you can schedule 60 days out, and that once you've used those three in the park, you can use three more. I mean, you can get more while you're there. Um, there's an app or a website that you can go to called My Disney Experience that is sort of the vacation central for your entire trip. People don't know what a magic band is. That everything is pretty remote.
They're amazing. They're
They are.
everything. That's my favorite part about a Disney trip. Full disclosure: my 37-year-old father self, Magic Band, takes care of everything.
Yeah, it's everything.
My
Just
wallet.
you want to buy a souvenir, tap the band. You want to buy a drink, tap the band. You want to get on a ride, tap the
Got
band.
the band. That's it.
People don't, because I get so many people who say I haven't been to Disney World in 10, 15, 20 years. It's like, well, then you basically never been,
And
because
that's the best comment you could have made, because that was us. And that looking back in time, that would be the comment I would make. It would basically forget everything you knew when you were a kid. It's literally a 180-degree different part. The
right,
castle's still there.
right,
Everything else,
right,
the nostalgia is still there, but how you enjoy that vacation is very, very different. and not to say that in a intimidating sense, but it's that
Right.
much more amazing. Like I'm telling
Right.
you, like my parents
Everything
probably
was
way more.
right.
My
All of
parents
those
are probably way more
safeguards.
in Disney if it was like it is now back when I was a kid.
Right.
It's
Right.
amazing now.
It's more convenient.
Mhm.
It makes it obviously with fast passes it prevents you from standing in line for a ton of rides. Um, Although lately that hasn't necessarily been the case with the opening of Galaxy's Edge at Star in Hollywood Studios,
That's
which
a
is
whole
absolutely
nother,
fantastic.
that's a whole other Facebook Live right there. But it is. I've heard it's amazing. One day.
It it is absolutely awesome. But that is another reason why you need a travel agent. If you are a Star Wars fanatic, you have no idea how to ride. You can't just walk onto those rides. That is not how it works, unfortunately for you. So you need to have a travel agent that tells you how to do all these things because Disney has tripled its guest numbers in the past few years, and so
Yeah.
there's so many people there now that you cannot just literally walk onto rides anymore. It's just not how it works.
Well, even
um,
our first trip 3 years ago, we've noticed how more crowded it is, how harder it is to get reservations. That's why I said we were so spoiled. When we went a few years ago, we thought that's how it was going to be, and boy, now we have to be that much more in
yeah, and
tune with
even
what's happening.
and every time they open a new land or a new ride, it gets
Yeah,
more and
much
more
more. Well,
crowded
than
because
Star Wars. Hello, that's
they're yeah,
a theme park
they're
unto itself.
fantastic. The rides are just so great that people want to keep going back and back. So
I have two more questions for you. Last
mhm.
one regarding your business. When people choose you specifically as a travel agent, what can they expect from you and your service when you're helping them?
So, dependent on the destination, let's just use Disney as an example because it is the most complicated. Generally, other destinations don't require as much communication back and forth between myself and the client. But for Disney, for example, I set up your My Disney Experience account. I open the account for you. I link your reservation to it. I order your magic bands for you. I make all of your dining reservations, all of your fast passes. I help you order strollers and groceries and get appointments at boutiques and all the little fun things that folks like to plan for their trip. I basically do everything for you, and then I always answer all of the questions that you might have, which is for a first timer pretty a lot. Generally, people have a lot of questions when it's their first time. So,
As a
um,
first timer, you don't even know what questions to ask, which was the problem for us.
right, right, and I do have an itinerary booklet sort of thing that I send out. It's like a how-to guide of tips and tricks. Which one of my clients I had last year, she told me it was worth its weight in gold.
That's
Which
how
I
we
took,
felt with our itinerary. That first time we went, we literally pulled out, and you like
yeah,
it was
yeah,
just laid out. Okay, now go to the bathroom. Okay,
right,
we needed that, and that's how we survived, and more importantly, that's how we enjoyed our trip. That was.
right, and now you know what you're doing, so that's a good thing. But those are the types of things that I do.
Last question, which I think I know the answer to. What is your favorite place to travel? Or where's your favorite place to travel?
Well, it is definitely Disney World, although I did just go to Universal Studios in Orlando in February, and I had a blast. I highly recommend it. It is um, as good as Disney. I
Really, just different.
it's close. It's close. I mean, the rides are very different, but they have some rides that are just as good as anything Disney's ever done, and some better. Their resorts are top notch. Transportation. I mean, I really was impressed, and I really loved it. And then I also, when I went out west last summer to the Grand Canyon and Monument Valley, that Utah is to die for. So those are my favorite vacations.
That's awesome. It's always good to know because this is what you do every
Yeah.
day. So your personal opinion is always good too.
Right.
I want to mention a few personal things about you since I didn't get to do it at the beginning of the video. So, previous jobs. This is one of my favorite questions that I ask somebody. You were an English teacher,
Yes.
just like our grandmother. You
Yes.
were a commercial real estate marketing specialist, and you also
Hmm.
worked in customer service. Hence why you're so good at being a travel agent.
Yes.
It's okay. My dog's barking too.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. You've been a
love it.
travel agent for 5 years. You're married
Yeah.
to Chad. It was a great wedding, by the way. I remember. It was fantastic.
You remember our grandmother dancing?
I do remember our grandmother dancing. I
That
remember a
was
lot of it.
that was
I remember our grandfather coming up to me and saying, "I used to drink Coke with my whiskey too," and I was like, "Oh, It was hilarious. I have a
That's
lot
what
of
you
fun
remember from my
memories.
wedding.
I have a lot of fun memories from your wedding. You've got three beautiful little girls, Audrey,
I do.
Camille, and Juliet,
Yes.
and you have two. They're all both puppies, huh? Callie and Rizzo.
Callie and Rizzo are mutts.
So we got a family of 7. It's a lot.
I do. All females. Lucky Chad. Well, no, actually, Rizzo is a boy. Rizzo is a boy, but
You just happen to forget that. You just
I
happen
did.
to Rizzo.
I did. Yeah.
And one of your favorite activities when you're not planning Disney trips, of course, is New Orleans Saints football.
Absolutely. Who dat?
Who dat, baby? Who dat,
Who
nation?
dat? Yep.
I asked you, what is your burning desire in your business? And you said it's to hit the $1 million in sales mark one day.
And I wrote 1 million and I meant 500,000. I'm sorry. It could be 1 million. That's
1
like my
million.
Steven's
We
like, why are
go,
you going down?
we go big or we go home.
No,
Okay.
we do. All right. That might take a long time. I meant 500,000,
Yeah.
but it could be 1 million too. I mean, especially if I just keep booking Pivatch trips.
It's
I mean, not just you, but you have an extensive
oh
family
yeah,
of
I've got 4 siblings and cousins, and my dogs probably go on trips for all I know.
right. Our
That's what
whole
we do.
family.
Everybody goes. So
That's right.
this is always one of my favorite questions too. Something no one knows about you. You at one point used to write the obituaries for the Times Picayune.
Yeah, I did in college. It was
I
like
was
my
gonna say that
college
sounds like a
job.
first time out of college job or a college internship type job.
Yes, it was our cousin Bruce
Bruce,
Nolan was
got
the
you.
right was a, yeah, and he one of his daughters had been doing it and she quit. So literally they would bring me a sheet the family would fill out with all of the info for the obituary and I would type it up and back when newspapers were actually a thing. And that was my college job but it was neat because I got to be in the newsroom, which was always my dream. So
And you got to do it young at an early age and figure out if that's what you really want to do or not.
that's right. That's right.
Cool. And then lastly, I asked you what your key to success was. You said always going the extra mile. And
Yes.
I'll end on that note. And again, from a personal standpoint, as we continue this Support Local Tuesday series, we'll obviously be featuring people that I have not worked with or that my other agents have not worked with. But hold on, let me get the dog to be quiet. Clark! There's one guy outside our front window, and he just even though he's this big, he has to lose his mind. But what I was going to say is, having personally worked with you on our vacations before, I can vouch that you've been an amazing resource, specifically for Disney. We've hit on Disney a lot, and I really wanted to because if you've ever planned on a Disney trip, if you're maybe a young family or building your family, you do need help, and you were instrumental not just in planning our trips, but really helping us understand and really discover how amazing Disney World is and then Disney parks and the lifestyle and the family that you join when you become a Disney fan. And so from the bottom of our heart at the Pivatch House, we're very appreciative for all you've done for us, continue to do, and will continue to do in the future.
I bet. Thank you so much for being a loyal client. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on your awesome show.
Absolutely. So thank you so much to everybody for tuning in to our first Support Local Tuesday. As you can see, we're with Leigh Morrow. She is a travel agent, specializes in Disney vacations. Oh, now there's a dog walking by, so he's really losing his mind.
Oh, lucky you.
Our dog's name is Clark W. Griswold. That should give you an idea of the family.
Oh my gosh. How did I know?
Exactly. But thank you again for joining us, Leigh. Thank you everybody for tuning in. You can tune in now every Tuesday at noon Central Standard Time. We're going to be featuring a small business or a local business to find out what they're all about, how they can help you with their services and their products, and also equally as important, how you can help them during these crazy COVID-19 times, help them with their business, grow their business, and just support local because that's what we're all about. Good Americans. So,
All right.
Stephen Pivatch,
Yes.
Pivatch Properties, Compass Real Estate, Leigh Morrow, Mouse Detectives. Thank you again for being here. Thanks for joining us, guys. See y'all next Tuesday, and y'all have a magical day.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.